I know nobody knows where it comes and where it goes. You got to lose to know how to win. How you doing, everybody? Welcome into the Creed of Crypto live stream. And am I actually frozen right now, or is it?
You are.
Whoa, interesting. Not too sure what happened there, but you do hear me anyway, correct?
I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, no clue what's going on right now then. Very weird. Welcome into the show. We got a good one for you tonight. We're talking about PulseChain. PulseChain been pumping hardcore over the last couple of days. And we are talking today about just how much it may pump in this bull market. What is the opportunity on hand here? I'm going to go ahead and stop and restart the camera here, see if that does anything. Very weird. Not sure what is going on there. Anyway, yeah, so we got a lot going on in the ecosystem. Hex looking really good over the last couple of weeks. PulseChain as an ecosystem as well. Lots of good things coming in crypto right now. We got Bitcoin up over 63K. ETH ever so slightly finally gaining a little bit of an advantage. Welcome everybody in the chat. I'll try to fix whatever's going on with my camera here in a moment because I know you guys love to see me moving around live here. We got AGH in the chat, DJ Moonboy, and Marco. Welcome in, Marco. We know you're a frequent flyer here. Urban Productions, welcome in everybody. Smash the like on your way in to help support Real DeFi. We appreciate you guys being here. We got a big bull market ahead of us. A lot of stuff to get into this evening. So, Ewok, first off, while I kind of mess with my camera for a minute, how are you feeling about the markets right now? How are you feeling about everything going on in crypto?
I'm feeling just as bullish as I was last week, I would say. I think, things are definitely looking to be headed in the right direction. Charts are looking pretty good. Seeing a lot of positive sentiment around the space. Like I said, I don't get too involved with too much of the chatter. You're good.
Cool.
I see a lot more positivity, a lot more people chatting back and forth, friendly. There's more friendly fire than hatefulness and just negativity. So yeah, those types of things are looking positive. Markets are looking good. I think there's a lot of things that are maybe on a small pullback right now, but that's still quite healthy. I think we've talked about that many times before, is when you do have a nice little pump, it's good to get that pullback. Market health needs it. It also helps get some bigger bags out that maybe won't be there when the prices do get up. So yeah, things are looking good. Sentiment overall looking good. So getting pretty excited for this end of year run here.
The sentiment shift is absolutely wild, like you just said. It was all over our show a couple of weeks ago. We talked about it for probably a half hour on that stream about all the negative comments that we were getting on YouTube, but we were noticing it on other PulseChain channels as well. I don't think it was just PulseChain at that time, but it certainly felt amplified that it was PulseChain. I mean, it was the most bearish sentiment that I can remember for quite some time. I remember big time Bitcoin accounts even saying it regarding the Bitcoin price at the time, and then just the sentiment was not matching where the prices were. And in PulseChain's case, yeah, we were retouching or actually setting potentially nearly new lows, but just for it to be a full year after we had touched the lows before and it hitting it again, and these people just getting as butthurt as they were, it just didn't make sense to me. And here we are, like 2 weeks later, and hell no, we're not out of the woods. We got a long way to go, but the vibe is different. I will say that for sure. Absolutely, for certain. You can tell by the comments. You can tell by the people viewing. You can tell by, I've been looking at other PulseChain influencer like YouTube channels and stuff like that. The views going up. So as usual, the price starts going up and people get happy again. So that's just kind of how it goes. But let's lead off. That's all it takes. Bitcoin right now at about 63.5K. ETH just under 2,600. ETH has shown just itsy bitsy signs of life here in the last couple of days. Nothing dramatic. It still is pretty much crap against Bitcoin, and we're still gearing up for it to run. We are entering the final quarter, as Ewok mentioned here, of 2024 to see what ETH is made of here. But it has been moving up here recently, Bitcoin as well. And what do you know? It looks like September is probably going to end up being a green month across the board when everybody and their mother and their grandmother and maybe even their stepchildren were calling for it to be red. So looking pretty good here in September right now. So bullish overall after, how soon we forget the rate cuts were just last week. We had a 50-point rate cuts. That was everything that we were talking about last week. Lots of people in the markets discussing it. And we have seen bullish action in really all markets since then. The S&P 500 hit a new all-time high, I believe. So, yeah, what do you make of the fallout after those cuts and what we're seeing with all markets and crypto prices right now?
Well, since you brought it up, we'll pull up the S&P, and it looks like it is having a bit of a red candle day, down to like 57.22 right now. It did make an all-time high, but there was the pullback right after that. So that's a pullback. Dow Jones actually is having a bigger pullback than that as well. So it's down from 42.3 down to 41.9. So it had a pretty good drawback as well. But as far as the one thing that I'm seeing here, let's pull up the ETH Bitcoin ratio. I do believe this trend line I drew a long time ago. It looks like it kind of bottomed out right on there, and has been making a nice climb up. So hopefully we've seen the bottom of that ratio. Things are starting to really look pretty good. Now we do have a red candle right now on the daily as far as that ratio goes. But after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 7 last days, I do think this trend has reversed. So we shall see how that plays out. But I think your ETH to Bitcoin ratio is definitely going to improve. So we'll keep an eye on that for you. As far as Bitcoin, it is having itself quite a big pullback today. It was up to almost 64.7, down to 63.3 right now. So that's a sizable pullback in a day for Bitcoin, when things have been going fairly sideways. So if you notice, though, the moving average, the 50-day moving average, is really kind of curling, though. So
yeah,
when that happens and it does break above this 200 moving average, that's a very bullish sign. And this has usually been, well, it's 200 days, so it's a very gradual slope. But when this 50-day curves like that, it tends to break above it. So lots of bullish signs here that are looking pretty good. But that's kind of what I'm seeing right now.
Just makes sense that we're in this bullish environment at this point. I mean, we just had the rate cuts. The market is reacting very positively to that. We've long talked about like all the positive well, I don't know if you want to call it positive, but dramatic things are happening in the United States here over the next few months. I'm totally disillusioned with any and all election talk. I'm sure many people can share that sentiment, but we got that coming up and a lot of other stuff. It figures to be a crazy Q4, just again, with American economics, world economics, everything going on in the world right now, and especially what we can get out of this crypto market. So, Pulse Jiu-Jitsu, Fast Abdul, welcome in, my friend. And yeah, things are looking good. Bitcoin, yeah, having a little bit of a down day today, but it does figure like after these moves up by a lot of these ecosystems that we do have some volatility and some moves back down. Even with PulseChain, I mean, we're going to get there in a minute, but we're seeing it come down a little bit after some really hot moves over the last couple of days here. So that's just kind of what you can expect after things have pumped. So Bitcoin looking okay. ETH catching up just ever so slightly. It is back over that 0.04 number again in its ratio to BTC. So hoping Ethereum will curl up here soon. Vitalik out there doing weird stuff as always. And, it's like some of the weird stuff he does is welcome. And, you think it's going to help ETH pump. Some of it a little bit questionable. So we'll kind of see what he's doing out there. Do you have any final comments on ETH and or BTC for now, Ewok?
No, I don't think so. I just think people, seeing it in our comments too. I think a lot of people learned lessons last cycle. Some people that were in this RH ecosystem was possibly their first cycle, whether they bought in tops, whether they had been there a long time, staked everything and didn't get a chance to exit. I think there's going to be a lot of people that do things differently. I'm seeing several people in here talking about this is called the retirement cycle. So it's interesting to see that. I hope they have a plan. We've talked about this before.
We're going to talk about it tonight, actually.
Yeah. So, it's all about having a plan, guys. So I, stick to it.
If you don't, plan to fail, you fail to plan, fail to plan to fail, that saying. So we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight here, coming up shortly. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk about profit-taking strategies in the bull market. So I think that's going to be a really good conversation here. Looking at the Pulse chain prices. So I mentioned it a moment ago. We are seeing a little bit of a dip back down today. Nothing dramatic, and honestly, it should be something that you expect after such pumpage over the last couple of weeks here. So we do have Pulse at 4 zeros and a 434. Pulse X now at 4 zeros, 2.3. Incentive is over $2, 2.12. Hex has been super volatile, and it's running hard every single time we get a pump. We saw RH tweet about it a little bit today. Hex is at it was at almost a penny earlier today. Like Hex on Pulse Chain itself was almost back to a penny earlier today. So it's at 0087 right now. We got eHex at 002. So we've had the combined hexes over a penny here within the last day even. So we're right there. And actually, I guess technically right now it still is. So yeah, things are still looking good despite this pullback. And it's just so funny. I mean, you can see how quickly people's emotions go when the candles go up and down like this. But, you know, remember, we were a good percentage down at retesting the all-time lows just 2 weeks ago. And now we are up here again. And I feel really good about that. I feel great about this price action recently. You and I, Ewok, have discussed, like, since we started this pump, you know, if we left those bottom zones forever, and I know you mentioned, like, you know, we could maybe retest them again, or maybe just come back for a little bit of a pullback before starting to take off again, which that's kind of the ebbs and the flows of the market. But yeah, what do you make of where Pulse is right now?
Well, I think it'd be a push to get back to some of these lows. You know, I do see it could pull back 50% from here. You know, down, well, not 50%. I don't think 50%, but you know, you could see a 20 or 30% dip, but I don't see it coming all the way back down to this 0.0003 level. So, I again, you know, market health requires these when we go on a run like this. You know, you do need some people to exit out of the positions and just have it continue. If you want to see long-term continuation, you definitely don't want to see just all green candles straight up. That's never sustainable, because it will come back down just as hard as it went up, and quite quickly. So, you know, again, that little cup and handle played out, and it just took off from there. Now, again, we are having a little pullback here with this is the Pulse price. Let's take a look at incentive, because this one's been kind of interesting as well. You know, it didn't, well, it did. It is pulling back. They're all pulling back just about the same. Right. Let's take a look at the Pulse X Pulse. I want to see that ratio real quick here.
It's been pretty volatile the last couple of days too. I saw it went back up to 1 to 2 and then right back to like 1.75 again. So it's been pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's 0.53 right now. So yeah, no, everything's, like I said, everything's looking good. This one has been on a major trajectory. So I don't know that it's really fair to look at this one a whole lot to determine what's going to happen, but definitely this Pulse price doesn't hurt to come down just a little bit more before it continues on.
Yeah. It's looking good. I mean, yeah, Pulse X against Pulse has been bullish for quite some time. I think that the Pulse price definitely is just such a good recovery off of the lows. I think we basically have clear skies ahead here for a little while. I'm not saying we're just going to pump right to the moon right now, but I mean, this is one of those things. I mean, again, we talk about it all the time, but it doesn't matter, because when prices are dead and the chart's red and people are not enthusiastic, they quiet down. They don't buy. People just, it's one thing to say like, oh yeah, I'll buy the depression, I'll buy the blood, I'll buy the bottom of the barrel prices. But when it's actually there, will you really do it? I mean, it does take cojones to actually do that when you're there. Now that we see this move right here, you're probably going to see some people. I mean, we are. I mean, like, look, all over Twitter, if you follow like any of those Pulse Alerts accounts, you're seeing 6 figures just bridged in over and over and over again, you know, the last few days, which is really cool to see. But you can see, and that's understandable, like bigger players and whales and stuff like that, maybe they want to see a bit of a confirmation. But not that you're going to front run them necessarily, but I think that's a good clue. You start seeing that kind of money come in because they got the confirmations that they wanted. Well, it may have also been the rate cuts. I think some people might have been waiting for that so they could get an idea of where this macro economy was going right now, and maybe that tipped them off to start getting into here. But we're seeing big clips come in. So once again, I mean, it's just felt good as somebody who's been DCAing hardcore like the whole way as we've been down there. It feels good to pump a little bit. So what do you have here?
Yeah, this hex chart is the only one that's looking different as far as USD value goes. It's like you said earlier, it's going on a nice little tear. It did have a 17 or 18% pullback, but now this green candle has started again. So if you're not acquiring hex, not setting yourself up with some T-shares at these prices, they're going to get away from you. And, you know, we're going to start hearing those people that say, oh, I'll wait till it pulls back. I'll wait till it pulls back. And I'm telling you, when these things run like they do, or like they did the last time, you don't get those chances again. So, you know, don't miss out on the opportunity that you thought you may never see again, to get, like I said, to lock up some of those T-shares, to get some hex at these prices. Because once it's gone, I don't know that we'll come back down to this level on the next cycle. So just a warning.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've been seeing, you know, we had Crispy Man on a couple of weeks ago, but we've been seeing just in some of the recent numbers with stakers, like the amount of them growing and stuff like that, the duration growing and things, like prices start to go back up. And it's funny, just like buying, it almost seems like people staking and interacting with DeFi, and like all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this stuff does work. And, you know, it has been flawless for the last 5 years. And, you know, maybe this whole thing is going to work out inevitably as soon as prices start to go up again. So you start to see like the longer stakes and stuff like that. So we are seeing it. It's super bullish. I'm glad that we're here with these prices right now. And I think that we've got some clear skies ahead of us, and we're going to get in a little bit to a potential hex parity based on a tweet that we saw a couple of weeks ago from Johnny Chaos, and the potential of this ecosystem for this bull market. So let's look at what Pulse Jitsu Fast Abdul has here. I know he has something with the 2 fucks protocol there. So go ahead.
I think it's something that he's involved in. We'll read his comment. Thank you for the super chat. Word from our sponsor: soon to the Pulse chain will feature bribes. The bribe berry protocol will allow 2 fucks users to take bribes for their votes. Other protocols like 9inch and Fucks could bribe too. So I think it's some sort of voting mechanism. I read a little bit about it, but I don't know too much. But yeah, congrats on the new protocol there, Fast Abdul.
Fast Abdul's on top of it. Fast Abdul is very fast. He's around a lot of these different streams, and I enjoy seeing him. He's been on with Corey and Dane, or just Corey lately here on the Friday shows. So appreciate that, Fast Abdul, and appreciate you tuning in as always. Wanted to see this from AGH right here. Sold my last 5K of XRP and bought Pulse today. Tired of dead coins like XRP and ADA. Sold them believing in RH ecosystem. Well, welcome aboard, my friend. If you are new to the ecosystem, I mean, I think you'll find a very vibrant, committed, wildly, what's a good adjective I'm looking for here? Just wildly, I already said committed. I mean, like, people are insane in this community, and they really value the principles that RH kind of instilled with crypto and stuff like that. So welcome to you. And I hear what you're saying too. I mean, other than just XRP and ADA being a couple cycles in, yeah, just feeling like not a lot is going on with them, especially XRP. I mean, you know, literally that they are dumping coins on you. Like, you know, for a fact that the CEO, people that run the thing, are actually dumping their tokens. Now, I don't know that I don't think Charles Hoskinson does that with ADA, and I'd be more bullish on Cardano for sure than I would XRP. I mean, XRP is just not even really, crypto. But welcome into you, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that sentiment as the bull market does go on, just from people kind of seeing what is going on over here. So, yeah, good stuff.
Good stuff.
Cult, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Cult dedication. We do have to remember, somebody gave me shit for reading his post, and we are now a layer 1 blockchain, and just because I read something doesn't mean I'm supporting it, doesn't mean I'm buying it, doesn't mean anything. But people that support this whole ecosystem in general are needed. I mean, I understand there was one point where Richard said, I don't care if there's anything else, I'm building it for Hex. That was the main reason that this was created in the first place. But there's going to be other stuff out there. I'm not telling you to buy it. I'm not telling you to not buy it. I don't know much about it. So he gave us a super chat. I read his text. So
yeah,
people can understand that, you know.
Well, PulseChain altcoin talk. Go ahead and send us some money, and whatever you say, we'll put up on the screen. That's just kind of how that works. So
there you go.
$500 to be exact. Okay, so let's move on here. That's where the prices are now. And very vibrant chat. So I appreciate all of you guys being here tonight. Keep hitting us up. Let's just go to this. And I don't want to. I hate being hasty and like. The thumbnail tonight, you know, talking about what could this ecosystem do in this bull market. Let's just get to that now because we're already talking about the prices. Things are starting to pump. People are getting bullish, so let's give the people what they want. And I think we should start off by just talking about what the principles are that we know of here, like what we have at our disposal as far as the community, as far as kind of a treasury of sacrifice funds that is out there. And, you know, the best founder in all of crypto, which is a real thing. You know, sometimes I know the whole thing of like, well, if RH disappeared tomorrow, it doesn't really matter and the products still work. Absolutely, yes, all totally true. And the products are great. And PulseX, for example, and Hex are both like amazing. Like Pulse is the blockchain. So that's what it is. It's the blockchain. Pulse is the token of the blockchain. But PulseX, you've got a DEX with the fee switch basically turned on with a buy and burn and everything like that no other DEX does this in crypto. Hex, awesome smart contract for yield that nobody else has really duplicated in crypto. So I understand that, but there is a selling point too of being behind the guy. And there's a lot of, you know, Richard Hart has a lot of exuberance and bravery, and that's why people get behind him. It's much like Elon Musk. I mean, people invest in his products just because they're like, you know what? I have faith in this guy. I know I'm not putting my money necessarily straight into him, but he has a lot to do with these companies. And I want to put my money there. So there's nothing wrong with that either. But I want to ask you, Ewok, and you don't have to give like specific prices, but we can talk about ranges, whatever you want to do. But what do you think PulseChain's potential is this bull cycle? Just again, knowing all those things I kind of just described. We talked about a wallet with sacrifice funds from the PulseChain sacrifice that has the PulseChain and PulseX sacrifice that has 170,000 ETH right now. You and I were just discussing it the other night with ETH at $10,000, a price that many people would hope is a safe estimate for where it could go at some point in this bull market. Well, that wallet, assuming everything was still in there, would have almost $2 billion in it. I mean, it would be 1.75 billion basically at that point. So knowing all of these things, and then like our friend AGH here, that I think it was him that is bridging over into PulseChain now and seeing all these clips coming in. What do you think we could see in this cycle? Because we've seen such a wide range of things. You know, back before the thing launched, you got K4K and all these people talking about 14,000x PulseX and all this stuff. Nobody thinks that anymore. I don't know if he meant this cycle or what he meant or whatever. But, you know, expectations have changed. It's been out for almost a year and a half now. We just retouched the all-time lows 2 weeks ago. There are people that are like, oh, man, if I get a 15x out of this, I'll be happy or whatever. So what are your kind of range of outcomes? And I think it is best to look at it in that way rather than a concrete price. But what do you kind of think just based on all these things and any other bullish things you want to add in that I didn't already add?
There's my prediction. 2 cents on Pulse. And that is a 65,000%, which would be a 65x from the bottom, I believe.
If it 2 cents would be about
652x. I'm sorry, I missed.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be like a 465x from here still. So
and that's from the relative bottom there at the point, you know, the 0031-ish area. It could go there. I don't think it'll stay long. Don't forget, we're going to see a lot of people exit this with very large bags once it hits the sacrifice level, once it hits, once they double it even at the 0002, and so on and so forth. So I think there's going to be a lot of pullbacks along the way that are quite sizable. So this could take a little while. But I do think that we could see a candle up to, cent and a half, 2 cents. People think that's probably unheard of right now just because of where we're at. It is a lot of X's, but at the same time, the more people that sell positions along the way, the more probable something like that is, at least in this cycle anyway. I think there's going to be a lot of capital that comes in. I think once, and this is something else we're probably going to talk about a little bit later too, is the narrative of the cycle. What is it this time? And I still think the DeFi thing has a lot to do with current events, I guess I should say. I think it's going to be quite popular. I think people are going to realize soon enough that this chain actually isn't just a ghost chain. It's not something that is a scam, especially if we get any kind of positive outcome from this SEC case. It's not even important, but it is to the people, right? This chain's going to move on whether that court case goes well or not. I think worst case scenario, it's a civil thing. So the worst case is they pay a fine, right? So I just think that's my target area. I think 2 cents is quite doable this cycle. And I think it's going to have quite the pullback after the cycle's over and we get a thing, a bear market. But that's kind of where I'm shooting for. So what say you?
Well, I mean, I would be beside myself if that were to happen. I think most people, I hope you're positioned well enough that would change your life significantly. I'll tell you this, I'm certainly not going to prepare. All right, well, I am prepared for a scenario like that, but I'm not going to count on a scenario like that, I guess is what I'll say. If that would happen, that'd be insane. I've kind of always, hence the thumbnail, I've kind of always thought that 100x, or at least always, in terms of once we kind of saw after the launch that basically it was kind of as if the value of Hex was, I don't know, dissolved isn't the word that I mean, but basically spread out over the 5 tokens. We kind of just saw that in terms of the price. Yeah, diluted, my bad. Yeah. So we kind of saw that, which made me a little bit adjust my expectations down a little bit. And then, of course, all the events of this past year, nothing to do with the SEC stuff. Yeah, I am with you 100%. I've been saying for a very long time, like the SEC thing, if some of the things that people say about the SEC lawsuit were true, then the SEC has way more power than we're even saying that they do. And I didn't mean to rhyme right there. But if people have said like, oh, RH wins the suit, or if it gets dropped here in October, not in October, but after the motion to dismiss hearing, we're gonna have an immediate 10x and all this stuff. I do think we would see a crazy bump up in price in the short term, but to think that that would pop off the ecosystem, like give the ecosystem another 100x at the end of the cycle versus not. I just don't think that's true. I don't think the SEC has that kind of power. I don't think people in the market give a shit about it at all. They don't. Like, just look at responses on the SEC's post. Look at responses on, like, today I saw that Watch Guru account talking about, oh, the SEC calls Bitcoin mining machines securities. It's like, oh, wow, okay. It's like Oprah saying, you win a car, you win a prize, all that stuff. So it's not really something that I take very seriously. So I don't really care about the SEC thing. But just with basically what I'm talking about more so is just the price of PulseChain. What has happened over this last year and a half has made me want to have realistic expectations, realistic lower expectations, just in case. And I've always been somebody who wants to prepare by, investing everything I possibly can in case it doesn't go to where Ewok says it's going to go, or even half of where Ewok says it's going to go. Like, I want to be positioned to be okay regardless. So that said, I understand where you're coming from, Ewok. And again, we just talked about crazy numbers. Like, you and I were having a fireside chat the other night. That treasury, whatever you would want to call it, with 170,000 ETH in it, ETH at $10,000 puts it near $2 billion. I mean, that could do legendary things for helping an ecosystem out. And also, I want to get your perspective, Ewok, too, because a lot of people here in the chat, and many people, I'd say the majority, I dare to say, people that are probably invested in this ecosystem right now are people that heavily bought tops in late 2021, that were buying Hex at 30, 40, 50 cents September of 2021. And here we are 3 years to the day, basically later. You saw the 10,000x last time around. While, that's measuring bottom to top, obviously, and not everybody or hardly anybody was able to take advantage of that exact top and bottom. Many people were staked out. I know Ewok included. But if you had any amount liquid with that kind of price action, people obviously did very, very well. So you have the benefit of going through that entire thing last cycle, Ewok, seeing it from start to finish. You were getting Hex in the early days and the adoption amplifier and all that stuff. So try to tell the people here, in case they didn't experience it, like just what that bull market can be like, and how, regardless of all your expectations, it probably went even far beyond those as far as Hex did last cycle.
Well, yeah. I mean, most people were back in the adoption amplifier days. There were so many people that were saying it would be a struggle for it to reach a penny, just because of the market cap and all of that stuff. So that was disproven, and then it got to 5 cents and then 10 cents. And it was just such a feeling of euphoria. And, I was one of the lucky people that got in on the adoption amplifier on day 33, which was the very, very low.
Yeah.
And I remember it was 0.00005655. I'll always remember that because, I was lucky enough to get in on that day. Now, I didn't have a whole lot, was getting in regularly, though, throughout that whole couple weeks.
Right.
Just a little bit of Ethereum each day, whether it was 0.1 ETH, 0.2 ETH, 0.5 ETH. I broke it up all through that period of time. And I don't think ETH was more than 120, 130 bucks at that point. So, it was very small amounts. But when you see something do a 10,000x, it doesn't take a whole lot, right? $100 becomes a million pretty quickly. So, I don't think PulseChain will do the 10,000x, not this cycle. I think it's still a little too heavy. I think there's too many investors. But to your actual question, it's just the euphoria that you feel is just indescribable. When you start to see everybody taking screenshots of their portfolio every day, that's a signal. When you start to see people going out and buying crazy things or talking about the things that they're going to buy, another signal. There's just there are a lot of a lot of those signals where it may be time to take a little off the top. Can't hurt, but yes, it's just a crazy feeling. It's like I said, you can't describe it. It's amazing.
Let me ask you this. So, talking about EHEX here, I think this is a good question from Breath. Do you think EHEX will reach previous all-time high of 50 cents, like 50 to 55 cents? That's an interesting one because, of course, you've got the split now, and Hex, the real Hex. The market has chosen Hex on PulseChain, so it obviously is out there. I personally, as far as this cycle, I would not be expecting EHEX to hit that. I think we would see something like, I do think the ratio between the two is going to close a lot, closer than it is right now as things start to pick up. But I think we would probably see more something like, I'm just throwing stuff out. I'm more so concerned about talking about the ratio than I am price. But I think something more like, I don't know, 50 cent Hex and then a 25 cent EHEX or something like that. Or, the ratio closer than it is now, certainly. But I don't know. What say you, Ewok? I mean, I know you're Mr. Perma Bull. Well, I guess we're all Perma Bulls, but you're Mr. Perma Big Time Bull. So, yeah, what do you make of this?
I think I think it could very well if the liquidity doesn't improve. Now, when I say doesn't improve, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. But there is very low liquidity for EHEX right now. There's a lot of liquidity for PHEX. So I think it can. I think it could get to 50 cents. And if that's the case, though, I do see Hex on PulseChain getting to over $1. Now, again, it's just going to be very dependent on liquidity. It's going to be dependent on ratios, how much of it does get locked up. You know, as things go up, it also entices people to create stakes.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a chain reaction. It's a snowball that kind of gets started. Liquidity gets pulled out a little bit and things run a little bit harder. There's not very much of it for sale. I think there's less than I read earlier somewhere that somebody, and I didn't verify it, so I'm not sure how close it was, but there's only 1 billion hex for sale, which isn't
EHEX.
much.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you remember, which many people don't, the adoption amplifier, the very first day hex was released, it released 1 billion. Every day after that for 360 days, it released 500 million tokens every single day. So 1 billion isn't much. It's a couple of days of that adoption amplifier or the very first day it was launched. So it could run really hard, really fast. Now, again, because of the low liquidity, there could be people sitting on liquid too that dump the price and try to get out. But again, that's going to make it even lighter. It could do some crazy things. I think we are underestimating what it can really do. You got to remember, this is Richard's baby. Like, Hex is his first creation. All of this other stuff was just built around it to support it.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to also have a better layer one, a better decentralized exchange where you can't remove people. You can't unlist somebody. So there's a lot of those type of things that were happening in Ethereum that he wanted to fix. And again, all of this was to support Hex. So don't be surprised if it does some crazy things again. It really can. From the low that we were at, it could do another 10,000x, and that is really possible, I think. So
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a good comment by Joffis here. Yeah, they can decrease liquidity to make the price pump during FOMO and easily hit 50 cents. I mean, yeah, that can happen. And as Ewok said, I mean, it doesn't take much to make the price of that move. So, and we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it with both hexes really as they start to pump up here a little bit. And the same thing that you said, Ewok, we're already seeing those staking numbers start to go up, like as soon as things start to move up. So,
yep.
I think we're going to end up not getting to like half the stuff that we wrote down for the show tonight because all these conversations are so good and lead off to all these great offshoots right now. The thing you were saying a minute ago about like a narrative for this cycle, and we do usually see, every cycle there's something, and the last one it was DeFi. Like 2020 was DeFi summer, went into 2021. Just all this crazy DeFi yield and different platforms. Phantom was a big one. Just everybody trying to earn yield and stuff through DeFi. And this cycle, we were talking about it the other night, there really hasn't been some kind of like, this is the obvious narrative. Like, of course, there's AI out there, but I mean, in terms of like linking it to crypto, it's really just been like coins that, here's the thing. It's just like everything that we bag on all the time that isn't Hex or PulseChain or anything like that. It's just heavily VC-backed projects that you don't really know what they are, and they slap the name AI on it, and you go from there. We've seen that with AI. There's a lot of people that want to talk about like real world assets and stuff like that, which, I mean, could you give me a more boring thing? I mean, like, the whole point of people being in crypto, I mean, is to get away from stuff like that. And it isn't sexy. Whatever it is, I mean, yeah, maybe it's a great product, but it doesn't sound very nice. And people aren't really flocking to that. You mentioned the other night to be gaming, Ewok. That isn't really a thing this time. I mean, that kind of already was. Meme coins are still out there and doing well. I mean, I guess like that could be a thing. But in terms of like some kind of like real creation, maybe this market is just, these are signs of maturity now where it's like, okay, we're getting to the point where like the real products are being built or have been built, and we're sifting through the crap that really doesn't matter, and we're starting to more easily identify what is just kind of a fraudulent, scammy type thing that people aren't really going to be interested in versus what's real. And maybe there can be a DeFi 2.0 thing. Maybe just people come back to DeFi. I don't know, but I mean, what's your read on it? Because I haven't really seen anything specific that sticks out as a narrative. And again, yeah, like you're saying, I mean, like maybe people will come back to these DeFi narratives again this cycle.
Well, and I hope they do, because honestly, what is more? You go back to trust in our country right now, and I believe it's probably at an all-time low. People don't trust the government. They don't trust the media. They don't trust doctors for medical advice. They don't trust. There's so much lack of trust. Well, what can you trust more than a audited, locked smart chain or blockchain? You know what I mean, or a smart contract? I think people. You said it before. I think the maturity is getting to the point where people are going to realize what the smart way to do it is, and to take this out of people's hands, put it into smart contracts and make it work, where it can just run without people deciding, because people are crooked, people are corruptible, but a smart chain isn't. And you've got to have the developers that are willing to do it. You've got to have the people that are willing to get out of the way, and create something that, removes the middleman. And I hope to see a lot more of that. Hex was one of the first ones that I've seen where the staking protocol does remove the middleman. You're not giving it to anybody. You're not doing anything. You're holding it in your own wallet. You're keeping in control of everything like that. And I just hope this cycle brings us more of those things. I think that would still be the extension of the last cycle. Because like you said, there isn't anything. And, we talk about games all the time. They're going to come out with trying to make games that are on the blockchain or things like that. They just don't have any staying power. And again, with the AI thing, well, what is AI than a really wonderfully written smart contract? that is AI in itself, right? So, that's my hope. That's my hope for this cycle, that we get an extension of some of the things that Richard kind of came out with last cycle. Back to the foundation, and the reason blockchain was invented in the first place was to get rid of some of these middlemen and take the control out of their hands and put it into a smart contract where, again, it's not corruptible, it's not influenceable. There's just so many positive things and benefits that can come out of it. So that's my hope anyway.
Yeah, I think so too. I want to show this. Some people might want to hide stuff like this when somebody is a little naysayer like this, but Jose comes in here. But we trust the guy under a lawsuit, so that's okay. I don't know if you keep tabs on the SEC and the lawsuits that they file against crypto entities, but yeah, he is joined by Coinbase, Uniswap, who, you have Hayden Adams from Uniswap still basically sucking off the SEC and Kamala Harris and stuff like that, while he's being attacked by them. Richard has a team of 11 lawyers that are fighting against them. So I don't know. Maybe he missed buying the bottom. I'm not really sure what his issue is. I mean, join the club. The SEC doesn't really seem to discriminate who it is they file lawsuits against. So,
No.
Yeah, we trust him fully. And if you want to trust the SEC and your government officials, hey, have at it. I mean, there's plenty of them to trust. So, yeah.
Sounds like a hater to me.
Yeah. But just in case, because you see stuff like that, and there could be people that don't know what's actually going on in the chat, and like, oh, what's this Jose guy talking about? He's, negative about everything. And usually those people know what's going on. Where's his YouTube channel and all these things? So,
now he's talking about the 11 leading its offers. So,
yeah. Well, please,
Jose, don't be a hater.
Be a hater. I don't care what he does.
Well, or be a hater.
If you don't have a bag and you want to hate on it, please hate on it. I don't know. This is probably like one of those guys that like sold at the bottom or something like that we've been seeing the last few weeks. So I guess there's still a couple around. But yeah, anyway. So that is that. I'm not going to give him any more attention because he wants it. So, Okay, so that is that. Let's actually discuss. Let me see where to go here. There's just so many good things talking about this ecosystem right now. Let's go to the Johnny Chaos thing. So let's talk about hex parity. This is something that people will get very heated about in terms of EX is dead. I mean, there's still those people out there that are rooting against it. And, RH tweeted about it and like just don't understand the concept that like, shooting it off also does hurt the rest of the ecosystem. And we saw that whenever Richard made that tweet, which I don't think that was his intention necessarily. He simply had an observation and then things went a little bit of haywire, but shit happens, whatever. But we are seeing EHEX recover really nicely against Hex anyway, ratio wise since that. And if you want to bring up that Johnny Chaos tweet, I am intrigued to have you kind of break down what he said. I sent that to you in a DM. I think you have it. Because it's interesting. It's something that I don't think many people have thought about. So everybody, it's been common knowledge, like Hex is going to be, they're not going to be a parity. It's not going to work that way. Hex has been more valuable than EHEX for quite some time now. And, maybe EHEX will be the people have talked about like, oh, maybe that'll be the whale version of Hex because they'll be the ones that want to pay the staking fees and all that stuff. Just so many different narratives that people have been trying to figure out. And frankly, good arguments from both sides. I mean, I've seen stuff where, like just the other day, Hexologist tweeted like, dude, a stake for me on Ethereum 3 years is costing me $300 or $500 to unstake, and it's 20 cents on PulseChain. And then everybody's like, yeah, exactly. This is why PulseChain was created, which is true. Like, yeah, no doubt about it. And those fees are going to be even worse in the bull market as it rages on here. But there are other things to consider as well. So here's Johnny Chaos. And I like where Johnny's been on this the entire time because he's just taken this exact same approach. And I appreciate it. He says, a word of caution, the OA can choose to lock that ratio between the hexes at wherever it decides at any time. If it would like to maintain a premium on its own chosen chain, it can. Nothing any of us can do about it. My suggestion would be let it go to 1-to-1, then lock it, which would be crazy. There would be no room for argument or confusion anymore. Hex would just be Hex, a universal conduit between chains. He goes on there. I don't know if you want to scroll down. I'm actually reading from your display here. All right. Whoa. Okay, there you go. And not just because it makes me right, because the conclusion was based on what would be the healthiest for the entire system. And exactly, and I think that's where Johnny's always coming from. He's not trying to be right. He's talking about the market, the ecosystem, what would make the most sense. Many of those nasty imaginary horribles I feared, well, we saw exactly that. So I don't know if there's any other part of that you want to look at, but I'm interested on your comments on that, Ewok, because I think Johnny has some insight that other people don't. And I like where he's coming from there. And it would be very interesting. I mean, I don't know that we'll see a lock like that. I know he's talking about what he would do, but my God, that would be interesting. So what do you make about that?
Well, in order to make that happen, all you're doing basically is buying one side up, selling the other until it evens out, and then throwing a bunch of liquidity in from the OA to keep that ratio locked the same. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. I think, Richard wants people to move to PulseChain for a reason, because it's cheaper. However, I wouldn't be upset if it got locked at that ratio. I don't see it being 1-to-1. I could see it forever being 0.75 to 1. I definitely don't see it being 1-to-2, because then if you do get to $5, then you're at $2.50 on the other side. It just really starts to have a disparity, the higher it gets. So I don't think they're going to step in. I don't think anybody will step in to set a ratio, but it is possible. Again, when you do get heavy liquidity like that, though, between those two coins, it does make it heavy. And I don't know that anybody could really ruin that ratio. So it is possible. And that is how it would be done. But I just don't see that happening. I don't see it. I think people like to allow the market to decide things. I think, the market has chosen at that point. The market could choose again. Things could reverse. Now, I don't see that happening. However, they could, right? I mean, I think that's part of the letting the free markets dictate and decide what they like better, and go from there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. Johnny has always had that position. I've always had that position, is why not just keep both? Like, don't try and make the right decision.
Yeah.
You and I both have bought more of both of them. And we recommend it for people because one of them is going to run a lot higher. One of them is a lot cheaper too. So you're going to see some probably similar gains out of both chains. They're going to be different, but it's not a bad play. Now, staking, unstaking, as things get busier, as things pick up, we've already seen it a little bit. Gas fees go up. That will be tricky for smaller bag holders to stake and unstake and things like that on the Ethereum side. So, one could serve as a just hold it kind of token on the ETH side, and one could serve as a staking on the Pulse side because of the fees, because of the benefits that you get from the cheaper chain. But yeah, it's going to, again, it doesn't come down to who's right, who's wrong. It just, everybody likes to talk about their ideas. So
I was laughing at what Fast Abdul just said here. He compared Johnny to the P-Dye guys a minute ago, which I think was partially a joke, obviously, but the OA could also create a global marshmallow shortage by buying all marshmallows and burning them. Bullish on marshmallows. So I get where you're coming from. I mean, I don't think that I don't think that necessarily we'll see them like pegged together like that necessarily. Funny to use the word peg there. But yeah, it is really interesting. And you just brought up a good point that I wanted to highlight, Ewok, talking about, EHEX, maybe people will be less likely to stake it just because who the hell knows what you're dealing with Ethereum fees, especially, well, regardless of what the stake length are that you're doing. But keep in mind, like, you can buy EHEX on PulseChain, and that's what, if you wanted to get exposure to it, that's what I would recommend that people do, and that's what I have done. And as I have been having any stakes come out on Ethereum, if I've been deciding not to restake them on there, because, to be frank, like, I don't know what we're going to see there. I would rather just bridge all of my EHEX over to PulseChain. You will get the copy of it right. I mean, not a copy, but like whenever there was a snapshot, but you'll have it bridged over. It'll maintain the same value, and you're not going to have to deal with Ethereum fees if you would buy it, sell it, whatever you want to do with it. Now, you cannot stake it there. It's still an Ethereum smart contract, but we also know that Alex McWhirter has been working on a lot of things with icosahedron, combining those two tokens. And we think part of that is maybe, hopefully, the ability to somehow stake EHEX on PulseChain. Now, we don't know that for sure, but just the fact that that's a possibility, that something like that could be coming. He's been at it for a long time, and he's been relatively quiet. But just the fact that that's a possibility, and at the very least, just so you could actually sell those tokens on a chain that doesn't have high fees, I would just bridge it over to PulseChain. That's what I've been doing with all of my EHEX. So, yeah, but just the possibility of Alex working on something like that, I would want to be in that position and be positioned for it. So,
yeah, and don't forget all the free stuff that comes out of it too. Like you said, with the E-hedron and the P-hedron and the E-icosa, PIE. So I get what Degen Moonboy said here. People won't even understand what the E and the P mean, but
True.
they will. They will. And people have to understand, we've talked about this before, the bridges, or not the bridges, but the on-ramps, the off-ramps are all closer to the Ethereum side. It's an easier onboarding for people to get into things and out of things, without having to bridge. Now we do have the bridge, we do have Coast, we do have the other protocols that are popping up here and there on how to get directly into PulseChain. It's going to take a little while till those become popularized, I guess the word would be. But remember, your on and off ramps are just as important, because that's where the money's coming in and out from. So you can't forget about the Ethereum side of things, and the volume on chain, the money that's on chain, the things that can be traded in and out of to get to there. So yeah, it's going to take a little while for things to even out and for PulseChain just to be PulseChain on its own. But right now we're kind of piggybacking on Ethereum, and that's okay.
Yeah. DJ and Moonboy said earlier that like some people could come into the ecosystem or at least come into Hex by buying it on Ethereum. And many people have said that like it's closer to the indoor and outdoor and in through the outdoor and all that stuff. So yeah, I understand that as well. So I'm not going to hate on eHex or steer people away from it necessarily. I mean, I would be lying if I said that I'd been DCing into it in the same way I had the other RH, main tokens for sure. But I still got some exposure to it whenever it was killed down like that. So, yeah, so good stuff from Johnny. Always giving some thought-provoking stuff there on Twitter. Let's move on to this. If you guys are here and enjoying the stream, do us a favor, hit the like. We do this every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got a couple more things we're going to cover. We're probably going to have to push this bull market profit-taking stuff in detail off a little bit because I want to get to these couple news items here real quick. So first off, we definitely have to talk about I don't think we really said it on this show yet, but Richard Hart's the motion to dismiss hearing with the SEC was randomly moved back a week, so to October the 31st, Halloween, instead of 10/24. And the question is why? This was done with about a month to spare. There's a lot of people out there saying, and we talked about this together the other night, Ewok, but a lot of people out there saying like, oh, yeah, the SEC knows that a lot of Hexicans and people are going to be flying in for it. They're going to be packing the courtroom. It's going to be a raucous environment. Not really raucous, but you know what I mean? There'll be people there, which is very important for the judge to see. Like, okay, here's faces to the names, so to speak, or faces to the investors. Here's all these people that are affected, and they're real, and they're here right in front of me. And they're supposedly, being abused by this guy and being taken advantage of, and they're there to oppose the SEC, so could it be a move by the SEC to do that? Or do you think that this is more something that is just a clerical thing? Somebody couldn't be there. The attorney had another commitment on their side, whatever it may be. Is it just happenstance? Or do you think there's actually teeth to like, they know what's going to be coming and they pushed it back? It's on Halloween day now. And it's also not till the afternoon. It's like 2:30 p.m. is when this is happening. I thought it was going to be in the morning, but it's not till 2:30 p.m. on the 31st. So what do you make of that? Is this just a random thing that happened, or is there something more to it?
Well, I don't know that we'll ever find out. I don't know that information's public, whether it was the SEC, whether it was the judge, whether it was attorneys, scheduling. I don't think that information has been released. If it was the SEC, then yeah, I think it's a delay tactic. I think they found out that there were going to be a lot of people there. That it doesn't make them look good at all. And I don't know if you heard. Where did I hear it? I think it was in an interview with Nuclear Herbs, or maybe Marco. That's who it was. It was Marco.
Oh, I saw it. Yeah.
Marco was talking about the day that he was there, and how they were very cordial in the courtroom, but afterwards there was a lot of jabs being thrown by RH's lawyers at the SEC lawyers. Like, we're going to walk all over you, kind of just digging at them. So I think any delay tactic or anything like that could put, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was them trying to mess up arrangements to, most people have families. Most people have kids. That's a trick or treat day. So they're going to go spend time with their family rather than sit the day in court. I just think that it is a delay tactic on their part. Again, I don't know that we'll ever find out if that information was released or who did it. But I know there were a lot of Hexicans that were planning on being there. PulseChain's. There's an after event scheduled. People are going out for dinner.
Yeah.
Event afterwards at some location for drinks and things like that, just to hang out. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me. They're willing to do that at the cost of whatever. But I hope that people are resilient, and even the ones that have to change their plans do, and we still get a big turnout. And it'll be just another thing that shows you can't get rid of us like that easy. You know,
Yeah.
it's we're pretty resilient. So I just hope that is the what people see out of this, and I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing to see the judge, or to have the judge see the people that behind this and supporting it, and we're not just dummy investors. You know what I mean? You're not looking out for us. We're here to kind of look out for ourselves. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, there you go from Joffis. He said, I was going to go, but now I can't with the new date. So I don't know how many people that'll happen to. I mean, I would think that, like you just said, Ewok, I think many people will just still make the adjustments because, if you're going to travel, especially if you're far away like that, yeah, it's Halloween, but I mean, it's Halloween. It's not like we're talking about Thanksgiving or something like that, or Flag Day, for example.
Right.
But I think people are still going to make the adjustments. Honestly, I think we'll definitely still see people there because this is just too important. Like, it just is going to supersede most other things in their life. And I mean, do you really want to be going walking around with some snot-nosed kid in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle outfit getting candy all night? I mean, come on, guys. You got a lot of years with your kids. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think we still will definitely see people show up in droves. I'm really excited to see it because we're going to see some live streaming probably from people and some videos from outside the courthouse, some after stuff. We'll get to hear kind of nose to the ground. Maybe a hexologist or somebody like that can do some courtroom sketches. We'll see them afterwards. I don't know, see something like that. So should be pretty cool. Yeah, but I'm not worried about it. I think we'll be fine as far as that goes. So, so that is that hearing moved to the 31st. Let's talk real quick. We may have to wrap up with this topic, and I want to get your take on it. I would be lying if I said I understood everything that did go on with this, but I was watching it the other day. This started to come down. I think it was Monday evening, or maybe yesterday. I forget which day it was, but so some new. What do you got there? Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Some news with PDI. So the PDI and PUSDC. So for those of you that are new here, probably no one, the stablecoin copies of DAI and USDC that are on PulseChain. We're seeing all this PDI minted out of nowhere, and basically a stronger liquidity bond between PDI and PUSDC here. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, PDI is rugging because it went down 20% in like an hour, which, I mean, happens to a lot of coins, honestly. But it was so funny because on Twitter, you were either seeing people that were scrambling, saying like, see, here it is. It's a scam. This is it. PDI is rugging. And then at the exact same time, like, the master plan is coming together, the maker protocol and all this shit, and trying to parse through all that. And usually nobody is right if they're on either extreme. But can you kind of fill us in on what you feel like happened here, Ewok? What is happening with PDI? And you're a really interesting guy to get a perspective on this because you're somebody who, didn't buy into this for the longest time, even when the stuff of like Maria the dev surfaced and everything, until I don't know whose video or what research you finally did to see like how some of the addresses were tracked back to where they were. But there's a lot of stuff behind PDI, regardless of if there's teeth to it or it's just a meme. There's definitely things going on here, and we saw some developments with it the other day. So what do you make of this? Could there be actual yield farms coming for this somewhere? Yeah, what do you make of this whole thing?
Well, as far as let's back up. Let's look at this comment here from PDI Maxi, 9 Iron Capital. It says, just like that, the arb between PUSDC and PDI is closed. You can see that there's been billions of PUSDC added to the Maker vault. Now, that is kind of how Maker works, right? As you offer it up collateral, tokens get minted. It says, to be clear, there is no free way to mint PDI. It isn't possible anymore since RH took control of the governance system, which we think RH took control, but everything's kind of pointed in that direction. Locked the voting system, updated the pricing oracles. It's all on chain, which it is. And this is one of the reasons why what we talked about last week, PLUSD, none of those updates were done with that contract. And that's why the oracle was all screwed up and everything like that. That's why free tokens of that were minted out of thin air and just dumped. So that's kind of what happened there. It says the only way to mint PDAI was to add collateral that had been approved by the maker governance system into the vaults. And according to these guys, that's what happened the other day. The PDAI sold down, the USDC, the PUSDC went up to try and create a 1-to-1 ratio with those tokens. So this offers up either way. Go follow or check out 9iron Capital's post on this, because there's a lot of interesting stuff here. But I think that's really what it boils down to, was trying to set parity between the two, so that liquidity between them would keep the arbitrage very, very close, right? If you're going to try and peg one, you probably want to peg both of them. As far as Tether goes, I'm not sure why that one wasn't included, but maybe it's not a collateralized thing or part of the governance system, whatever it is. I don't know too much about it on the back end like that, but I also don't know, and I don't believe that this Dev Maria or whatever has a whole lot to do with it. If the addresses that are being looked up, those belong to the OA, those are the ones that locked it. I really don't think Maria has anything to do with it, other than create a whole bunch of tokens that are tied in with it together. But either way, that's why the dump happened that we saw, and the pump on the USDC went way up as well. So they evened out. As far as creating a farm, I don't know that you would want to do it quite yet. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that goes, whether you need to purchase a whole bunch of it to get it up there. Obviously, that's not something you want to do, only because, again, there are so many people holding very, very, very large bags of this that could just dump. So why would you inject a whole bunch of capital into trying to pump something up that you know people are going to exit out on you? It would have to be done strategically and over time, rather than just all at once. So I think you're going to see some pumps. You're going to see some pullbacks. You're going to see it happen very, very slowly. I don't think this is going to be a instantaneous, okay, we're now at 10 cents, we're now at 20 cents, we're 30 cents. You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to climb like that. I think it's going to take some time. And I think once it does start to happen, you'll see more and more people getting on board, probably buying it up naturally. So that's my take. I really think it was more so people not exiting or getting out, but evening the price between the PUSDC and the PDAI out together, so that there is some parity there, so that there can be a farming opportunity between the two to lock them. And it would also create another stable pool type situation where people can enter it, lock it up, which eliminates the selling. Not only that, it bonds them. So a lot of good things. That just, again, this is my opinion of what's happening and how it's playing out. But there you go.
Well, it's definitely, I think, good to see. I mean, it's good to see more development happening with this, you know, and I think we're going to see more as the bull market goes on. I mean, next year could just be absolutely crazy. And there's a lot of people out there. We were talking the other night about Coexistent Steven, who his channel is pretty interesting. He has a lot of stuff about PDAI and some of the inner workings if you want to go somewhere to really see the depths of everything that does go on behind the scenes with PDAI. So I think it's very interesting. Obviously hold some, and am looking forward to what else is to come for sure. And it could be, I saw somebody say in the chat a little bit ago, I mean, it really could be a key to a lot of things that happen on PulseChain, which is so weird. I mean, not something many people would have expected. I mean, you literally couldn't even really dream it up until it started to happen. So we'll see. We'll continue to watch it, and who knows if the pegging is real? Will it ever peg? Will it ever get to $1? I'm not even really as interested in that. I'm just more interested to see where this whole journey goes, because it's obviously going somewhere. It seems like. So
yeah, for sure. I think it's gonna be fun to watch. Again, there's still believers and non-believers, and that's fine. But after seeing what the things we've seen by the OA, I think it's going back watching some of the older videos. How Richard always said, I've got some ideas, I've got some
right.
things up my sleeve, and maybe this is one of them. Maybe this is a play to make this happen. Where he's always said it would be really nice if USDC would just validate their tokens on my chain, but I don't think they'll do it. He said, I don't think they'll do it. So, this was his way around that, where they can't invalidate them, especially now that they're a different contract. So it should be interesting.
And to answer Chris A's question here, I mean, this is kind of a matter of opinion, I think. But he said wrap die on PulseChain is the best stable on PulseChain, right? So I'm assuming you just mean if you bridge over to PulseChain, just to use DAI as the stable coin to then DCA. I mean, I think unequivocally, yes. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to use it. I think like security wise and trust wise, DAI is the best option always, really, for a stable coin.
Now that the stability pools have been created on PulseX, it doesn't really matter. There for the longest time, DAI was the best one because it did have the most liquidity between the pairs. But at this point, because of that stability pool that was created on PulseX, it doesn't matter because Pateus and the other aggregators will route through that to find you the best ratio, the best liquidity that's available. So just a heads up, it doesn't matter as much as it used to.
True. I think also just in a general aspect, though, I mean, DAI hasn't depegged before either, So, I mean, I understand the question's more about like PulseChain, but as far as like favorite stable coin to use just in general in crypto, I mean, for me, it would definitely be DAI if I was like just onboarding into stuff. You don't have to necessarily do it. I've used USDC plenty of times to bridge over and stuff, but Ewok brings up a good point too, with those stable pools and everything now too. So very good for sure. Okay, I think we should wrap up with this because this was a news thing that just happened yesterday. It's more of the same, really, but I think we should just cover it real quick. So Gary Gensler, once again, embarrassed big time in front of Congress, grilled all day, all the clips with Tom Emmer. I don't know how much of them that you saw, Ewok, but Emmer, of course, was going in on him like always. An interesting clip that I did see, and Tom Emmer's he's the majority whip, actually, of the Republican Party. Last I knew, he's from, I think, Minnesota. But at one point, he brought up the crypto asset security thing. So the big thing that we had a couple clips from our show about it last week, the SEC just walked back this term that they had been using in all of their lawsuits, yes, including the PulseChain one, crypto asset security, basically a term that they just made up without, you're basically labeling something, as they always do, a security without it being one. So you do that, you put it on all of your lawsuits, you start walking it back and clarifying what it is you actually meant. But Tom Emmer actually went in on I forgot his name, Gensler, on this, and wanted to know the conflict of interest basically between Kamala Harris saying, I don't know how much any of us buy this, but her suddenly saying that she wants to be, whatever she said the other day, pro crypto, or, reach out a hand to crypto, whatever it is she said about crypto, that no one believes. And whether it's a rebuke of Gensler that she's saying that, or if she's just lying and she doesn't want anything to do with crypto.
You want me to just play the clip?
Oh, yeah, if you have it. Yeah, well, if your audio comes through. I don't know if the audio is programmed to come through.
Let's try.
If it doesn't, I don't want to mess with it for long, though.
Let's try. Let me know if you hear this.
Chair Gensler.
Yeah.
Leadership comes from the top, correct?
Leadership comes from a lot of things, but the top matters a lot.
It's yes. The answer is yes, sir. But under your leadership at the SEC, it appears that you expect political allegiance, not just from the political appointees, but also from the civil servants you hired. Isn't that correct?
That is not correct, sir.
Well, sir, that's yet another deliberate distortion of the truth. The House has obtained emails between you and your now director of training and markets. He interviewed with you and then sent you a follow-up email reassuring you, sir, that he aligned with your political views. So that to me seems like you expect political allegiance from the people that you hire as civil servants at the SEC. The way you hire and the culture you require encourages your staff to have loyalty to you above the law and above the mission of the SEC. Which brings us to the debt box case in Utah, where your attorneys, who no doubt heard your anti-crypto rhetoric, which is not based in law, went out and deliberately lied to a court in order to effectuate the commands from their chair to prosecute crypto companies. Chair Gensler, do you know of any other time in history where the SEC has been sanctioned by a court for material misrepresentation?
First, if I might say, when we hire folks, we hire them
reclaiming my time, sir. The answer to that question is no, it has never happened. But let me ask you another one. Does the fact that we're talking about this today even slightly embarrass you?
You want to put this on like double speed?
We're not well handled, and we said that to the court.
Reclaiming my time again. The debt box case should absolutely be embarrassing to you, sir. And just to be clear, the SEC had to pay with taxpayer dollars nearly $2 million in legal fees for this material misrepresentation, for this lie. You are aware of that, I'm sure. Is the debt box case the reason that why the SEC's head of crypto asset and cyber unit resigned in June, sir?
No, they went to take another job.
Okay, so no one in a senior level position here in Washington, D.C. has been held responsible for this complete abuse of taxpayer dollars. The SEC broke the law, your attorneys lied to the court, and no one in your leadership here in D.C. has been held accountable. That tracks. Seems like business as usual here in Washington. Okay, switching gears very quickly. It's been recently reported that Vice President Harris has finally said she'd craft clear rules of the road for the digital asset space if she becomes president. Is this your approach too, sir? Or do you think she's rebuking you because she doesn't think you've done a good enough job establishing these clear rules over the last 3 years of her administration?
I think that there's laws in place. If Congress wishes to change them, they'll change them. But we are enforcing the laws, and there are many people in this field
so you don't think she's
following the laws.
Reclaiming my time. Well, it's very interesting that you view your performance that way, because we have a litany of court cases, extraordinary confusion in the marketplace, and millions of Americans pining for clarity from you. You've abused the agency's enforcement tools, and you've even baited companies eager to comply with you, only to hit them with enforcement actions. You've retaliated against businesses and people who have come before this committee to talk about the next generation of American finance. And perhaps somehow, worst of all, you've made up the term crypto asset security. This term is nowhere to be found in statute. You made it up. You never provided any interpretive guidance on how crypto asset security might be defined within the walls of your SEC. Yet, you made the broad proclamation that you believe a majority of tokens are crypto asset securities. You did this, and you deliberately used this made-up term as the basis for your entire enforcement crusade over the past 3 years, only for your lawyers to retract it in a footnote to a court just last week. Your inconsistencies on this issue, sir, have set this country back. We could not have had a more historically destructive or lawless chairman of the SEC. I yield back. Thank you.
So that last part is the main part. I mean, he absolutely nailed it there. And for everybody who doesn't realize, we just talked about it last week and we said it earlier, that terminology is all through the PulseChain lawsuit, the crypto asset security. I mean, that's all through that lawsuit. It's through everything that they've been doing. And again, like Emmer just said in a footnote to the judge, I mean, like they just hurry up and kind of backwalk it and act like it's not a big deal, but it's still in all these complaints, which you're now stuck with. Like that you're stuck with the complaint that you drafted. You already called it that. So this is significant. It's great to see him being grilled here. You always have the question, like, is this political theater a little bit? I mean, you know, our modus operandi is just pretty much to like not trust anyone in government, you know, which I think is probably the best way to go. But it is interesting to see how long is Gensler for this world? I mean, I don't think that Kamala is rebuking him in any way. I think she's just pretending she cares about crypto to get elected. I mean, I don't know why anybody would buy into that. But either way, I don't think he's long for this world. I don't even know if liberals are really fans of him at this point, especially if he's standing in the way of them getting elected in any way. I don't think the guy's going to be around too much longer. But what did you make of these comments? Certainly nice lighting up by Emmer.
Yeah. Well, Emmer has a history of lighting him up and, you know, always yield back my time, because Gensler goes on these stupid rants that don't answer any question. It's as political of an answer as you can get without really saying yes or no between these two. So, yeah, we know a lot of that is political theater. We know they probably go and have beers afterwards, for all I know.
Right.
There is a little bit of I don't know what the word is, angst maybe between the two, where you can kind of tell he doesn't really care for him much. They're making people's jobs harder and whatnot. So, but yeah, the whole comment on the crypto asset security is going to be a big downfall, I think, because of the way they addressed it in a footnote, like you said, in another case. Now all of these things, they're just giving these lawyers ammunition for going back and saying, remember the debt box case when they lied to you? Well, now they're just making up terminology. Where does it stop with them? So the credibility has diminished with the SEC. The things they've pulled, the things they've tried to get away with, and I really think this team of Richards is going to just walk all over them. I really do. They're sharp. We heard that guy talk.
Michael
When he addressed Congress or I forget who he was even addressed, whether it was the Supreme Court or whoever it was, but either way, when he addressed them the other day for something completely different, you could tell he's very well spoken, very intelligent. I just think they're going to mop the floor with these guys. I really do. So, yeah, as much as it is political theater, Harris is just looking to get votes at this point. I don't think there's anything or any plan. We haven't seen any other plan, let alone crypto plan. I mean, come on. We haven't seen an economical plan or
well, they're going to tax unrealized gains. We know that.
Well, besides that, so yeah, I think they're gonna be disbanded here in the next few months.
Well, at the very least, I do think Gensler will be gone eventually here, in the not too distant future. But yeah, I do think they're in trouble. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's not even just being like, I honestly feel like I'm looking at this as objective as I possibly can, because forget about like being involved with the RH ecosystem or anything like that, or liking Richard versus hating the SEC. If you just look at it, I mean, one is an unelected government entity that just goes around suing everybody. Like the common denominator is them. It's not like all these people doing wrong. It's them, and they're losing. I mean, like judges in courts of law are siding on the side of crypto, and even like Ripple, which is the closest thing to possibly being a security. They not only did they side with Ripple, I mean, it was like, with prejudice, this is over. I think they paid a very, very small fine, but they won the lawsuit outright. There was no settlement. They were ordered to pay a small fine for something else, but they won the lawsuit. So, I mean, if Ripple is at this point, I mean, they don't have anything to come at Richard Hart about, and especially the competency of Richard's attorneys. I mean, these are people that used to work with the SEC. That's what I think people don't understand, that are not really looking at this lawsuit with PulseChain. They don't understand like the support that Richard has. They don't understand the chops that these attorneys have, where they've worked before. They know the inner workings of the SEC, and they're way more equipped to talk crypto than anybody at the SEC by far. So, I get it. The SEC has nothing to lose. You go, the whole game, we've talked about it before. You throw as many cases out there as you can so you can win just some of them. They don't actually have a leg to stand on in many of them, but you just want to, go out, throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and just gather what you can back. So it only stands to reason that the victims of these lawsuits, which are really the investors, but the victims, as in the plaintiffs in these cases, or the defendants in these cases, are going to fight much harder than the SEC, because you're trying to take their whole entire life away, whereas the SEC is just trying to, get a notch in their belt. So,
yeah. And I don't know. There was a video of RH. I don't know if it was the Christmas video or whenever it was, but he was talking about how he's always very careful to, hedge what he says. Just be careful what he says. But when Gensler talks about things, he often says about how I'm not speaking for the SEC. Well, then he's speaking for himself, and he's going to get himself in trouble. I would hope to see that some people do pull some money and fight back at this point if it continues. So, anyway.
Yeah. I'm with you. But nice to see that happen anyway. So
Yeah.
good stuff. We'll get Gensler out of there here soon. But this was a terrific show tonight. I know I got to run. I'm sure you do too, Ewok. But really active chat. We appreciate all of you guys being here. It's no surprise that we're starting to see prices go up. PulseChain's starting to pump. We're getting people in the chat. So appreciate you guys. Chris A., I don't think I remember you from before, but you were very active tonight. Valiant Low Key, LC, Izzle, L Sizzle, whatever. Yeah, DJ Moonboy, of course. Take a break with Jake for producing the show. Jim Horton, man, checks my pulse always here as well. Many, many others. Fast Abdul, all these other people. So thank you all for being here. We do this every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be back here next week. Let's hope the pumpage continues. Smash the like before you hit the door, hit you on the way out, and we will see you guys next week right here on the Creative Crypto live stream. See you guys. Beep, 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 beep.